Hello, everybody, and a happy Sunday to each and everybody out here. Hope you're doing well. Hope you're able to maintain your highest level achievable of mental, physical, and spiritual health. As always, we are very happy that you're here to join us. This is about our 30th consecutive week doing this, and we shall continue. We've had a number of people express that it's like church to them, and that is indeed humbling for us. And we are glad to be here with you, hopefully to give you something to think about and things that hopefully we can use to advance ourselves individually and collectively. So we are going to engage this topic today. The election these folks have, it's over. What happens now, right? There's so much emphasis on vote, 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 vote. No one ever talks about, for everyday people, what happens now. And since no one talks about it, the inference is that somebody else is going to do something to improve our lives. And we have a 528-year history to demonstrate to us that that's not going to happen. So the purpose of today is just to give some thought starters on some things each and every one of us can do to, prepare to continue to move forward, right? And so we have, of course, we start by acknowledging respectfully the indigenous people of the Western Hemisphere. We want to say again, especially in this month in November, when the imperialists use their annual lie to subtly suggest to you that their theft of this land was somehow a mutual process between the Europeans and the indigenous people. It was not, it never has been. It wasn't in 1637, and it isn't today. This is stolen land, stolen real estate, stolen soil, and the indigenous people want their land back. And they have every right, justifiably, to have their land back. And we stand in solidarity to do whatever they need us to do to help them get that land back. And of course, we believe what they need us to do is exactly what we're struggling to do: liberate Africa, because we believe that this entire economy in this capitalist system is based on exploiting Africa. So obviously, when we're successful, that makes things much easier for the indigenous people, much easier for the Palestinian people, and vice versa. So we honor our African ancestors as well, who have paved the way for us and given us the vision for how we need to concentrate our efforts on building power for our people. And our ancestors fought for us to do that. They fought from the very beginning through this day, and they fought for freedom. So we're not confused by this bourgeois nonsense. Well, our ancestors fought for us to have the right to vote. That's an out and out lie. Our ancestors, all you have to do is ask them, they'll tell you. I spent plenty of time around people like Kwame Ture. He went to prison 26 times fighting for the vote. How many times did you go to jail fighting for the vote? So his opinion matters a little more to me than yours. And what he would always tell me is that we fought for freedom, and voting was one tactic to achieve freedom. There are many tactics. I saw someone say the other day, well, our ancestors fought for the vote, so that's why we have to do it. And I said, well, our ancestors also slit slave masters' throats. So how come you're not saying we need to do that? So there are many different tactics, you all, to achieve freedom. And don't let your enemies define for you that there's only one. The only one that you can use is the one that they endorse. And you can't use any other or else you're insane. Well, we're never going to accept that. So we honor our ancestors who fought many different ways for our freedom and continue to do that. And we carry on that transition. So we're thankful for that. And then as always, we just quick introductions. I'm a longtime organizer for the All African People's Revolutionary Party, and we'll continue to do that. to the best of my ability and while I have breath in my body. And Shakura is with me, my outstanding daughter, who is living, working hard to complete her advanced education and is committed to using her skills to advance our people and humanity, and does that every day. I know she does that because she would be disowned if she didn't. So she knows that her mother and I and all of us have a tradition and we have a legacy. And the joke that I've told her since she was a little child is when she was very little, she told me something about the US military, like interested in US military. And I told her, well, if you join them, you just have to change your last name so no one knows that we're related. And now, you know, that she's an adult and has absolutely no desire to become a paid mercenary for US imperialism, we joke about that. So she's on here with me, and I'm so happy to have her with me, of course, every week doing this, as well as everything else we do together. And again, back to the overall objective, our objective is Pan-Africanism, which we define as the total liberation, unification of Africa under scientific socialism. That work on the ground, Kwame Nkrumah's Handbook of Revolutionary Warfare, is about uniting all of the Pan-Africanist forces. You see some of the logos for many of them that we work regularly with, who are on the ground throughout the African continent, who are fighting for one unified socialist Africa. So the vision in Nkrumah's Handbook is that all of these forces are united into one entity. And that's the work that we're engaged in. And also, you know, besides the fact we have chapters worldwide, we have relationships with other liberation movements and strengthening them and them strengthening us and doing whatever we can to build this worldwide fighting force that'll bring about justice for humanity. Okay, so with that, we're going to get into our topic. Your election is over. What's next? And to start us off, as always, I'm going to turn it over to Shakura.
Okay, greetings, everyone. As my dad said, I'm just going to echo, I hope you all are finding that you are somehow in a good space, physically, mentally, emotionally, whatever that may be. That's funny, I forgot about the military story, Daddy, so thank you for that walk down memory lane. So I just want to start by just encouraging all of us before I go into the actual slide, that I know that this particular topic, for a lot of us, this is all we know. For many of us, our families, like this is all that we've ever been taught. This is all we've ever talked about. But I also would encourage you, if you're choosing to join every Sunday, then that means that you know that you're attracted to this idea that these truths are coming out and things are making sense to you, probably for the first time in a really long time, okay? So just keep an open mind, just like you have for the previous 29 weeks that we've been doing this, that we are asking you to kind of think from a more global standpoint. And we're also asking you to really have what they call a growth mindset in terms of your willingness to possibly be uncomfortable because you know that new information is being introduced to you. With that being said, besides the constant get out and vote crusades, now your election is over. And the results is capitalism, white supremacy, patriarchy, and homophobia. As the continued policies this empire has embraced and enforced for 528 years, its vestige have existed in this hemisphere. We are quite sure no one was naive enough to believe that any of those terrible things would be resolved in any way through another US bourgeoisie election. We also realize that most people focused exclusively on politics within this empire are most likely completely unaware of the exploding political situations in Guinea, Ivory Coast, Bolivia, and the rest of the world. We are also quite sure that most people are unaware of the close connection the events in those other countries have to maintaining the capitalist empire and dominance over the entire world that this past election reaffirmed. And we, of course, hear the chorus of voices directed at our revolutionary organizing work, telling us that we should tactically participate in the local elections, even if they agree with our analysis of the national elections. And our response to them remains the same. Sending an oppressed person to participate in the system controlled by their oppressors is like sending a lone, unarmed person to attack a police station or military installment. The voting crowd within the capitalist system takes this individualistic approach of individual voting with no plan, interest, or understanding of the reality that every gain oppressed people have won from voting, including the candidates who have taken office, has happened because of a strong movement pushed those things into existence. But now that the circus has concluded, we ask you, what's next? What steps will you take? What steps are you going to take to ensure that you do your part to ensure the powerless masses of humanity are empowered so that we can actually begin to address these core exploitive elements that continue to make the majority of lives on Earth miserable? Next slide, please. So with no mass movement and only the results of a bourgeoisie political process we do not control, the critical question is, what will we do now? Some of us will do the same thing we always do. Start focusing on the next bourgeoisie election, maintain the individual focus on voting that has failed us miserably, and they will tell you that this next election is the most important election of your lifetime. Sound familiar? The same thing they always say in every bourgeoisie election. Meanwhile, this is where that growth mindset comes into play. Meanwhile, this session today is for those people who desire more, who know we deserve more and want to do more to provide us with the vision we need to break out of this dysfunctional cycle. What we will provide today are some quick and concrete things everyone should be doing today to make the masses of oppressed people stronger and better able to build a capacity to wage a successful fight against injustice. Thank you.
Thank you, Shakura. So, like Shakura said, we're just going to go over some really quick things. A lot of people, I wrote an article 4 or 5 years ago called Organizing 101, Do's and Don'ts. And, you know, as is often the case with the articles that I'm writing, this is just how the process goes. There weren't a whole lot of people who read it at first, because a lot of times people's interest in it is based on what's going on, right? So, you know, now with the election happening, everything, people are thinking about more so than usually, you know, what else is there out there? So this past week, somebody dug that article out from my blog and started sharing it. It started getting shared, and it had, you know, thousands of people read it just this week alone. And that's cool. But the point of that article is that it names some concrete things, some basic things that we all can do. We're all qualified to do. We all have everything we need to do that we can engage in that really can help make our efforts to create a better world more tangible. So what we're going to do today is just go through some of those things and just talk about what they mean and encourage people to implement them if you're not already doing so. And we believe that by doing this, it will really make everything that needs to happen, will create the culture and environment so that it can happen. And again, all of this is rooted in the reality that we don't believe that anybody in any elected office in this system is going to bring about our freedom. I understand. I totally get it. You know, I didn't fall in with the rain yesterday, and I know our people's history. So I don't need anybody to explain to me the emotional symbolism of Kamala Harris. I understand all that. Trust me, I understand it better than most of you. But I think we have to also, you know, once you get past that and do whatever celebrating you're going to do on that, we have to also accept the reality that whoever occupies those seats, their job is to uphold capitalism and white supremacy. There has never been a president or a vice president in this country's history who has not upheld capitalism and white supremacy. You cannot name one. You cannot name one person in all 46 of those regimes where this person has stood up and waged an uncompromising struggle against white supremacy, capitalism, patriarchy, all those things. It's never happened and it never will. So we believe that if we really truly want those things to go away, we're the ones that are going to have to make them go away. We believe, as Kwame Ture said, that change comes from the power of the organized masses. Change comes from the power of the organized masses. It does not come from bourgeoisie political structures that are dominated by super rich capital. And we're down here, we have no capital. And history has proven that in that scenario, we do not get what we want. We do not get what we need. I don't care how much. So, yes, African women, yes, African people are the reason that the latest empire president was elected. So the question is, what are the needs of African people, the people that made this person, put these people in this position that they occupy right now? And I'm telling you right now, and I'll take bets. I'll take as many bets, whatever you want to bet, I'll take it, because I know I'm going to win when I tell you that 4 years from now, 8 years from now, whatever kind of time frame you want to put on it, if we do not begin to seriously engage our struggle and own our struggle, what we're going to be looking at 4 years, 8 years, 20 years, 100 years from now is going to be the same mass incarceration that is devastating our people right now, the same imperialist domination of Africa that is devastating our people right now, the same reality of police shooting us down like dogs on the street that's hounding us now. The Black Lives Matter movement did not start under Donald Trump. It started when Obama was president. I know we don't want to hear that, but that's an objective fact. So clearly, you can't argue. The argument doesn't make any sense to, like people act like this one man was the problem. This problem has been here 528 years. So pardon me if I'm not going to be lulled to sleep into thinking that replacing one old white man with another old white man is going to solve our problem. Like, I'm not that stupid. So we're talking about things that we can do to solve our problem. And please understand, because, confusion is the order of the day in this society. So please, please, please understand that we are not saying that if you put your time, energies, and efforts into voting that you're wrong. You've never heard us say that. And if you say we said that, you're lying. We didn't say that. What we've said is, if that's what people are going to do, we have got to understand that the gains we made from that happened because we had a mass movement that pushed the system to buckle under our demands. We had a mass movement. It was called a civil rights movement, right? In the 1960s. That's why you got the Civil Rights Act of 1964. It didn't just happen by individuals going and voting. That wasn't even a process for that. It happened because of the pressure from the mass movement that was engaged there. That's what created that. Dr. Martin Luther King had countless meetings with Lyndon Johnson. And now you crediting Lyndon Johnson with signing the bill. It's like Kwame Ture said, he better hurry up quick and sign it. Cities were starting to burn. He had to sign it. And the Voting Rights Act the next year. These things only resulted, the Immigration Reform Act, because of our movement. Today, we have no mass movement like that, not on that level anyway. And all we're doing is just individually participating in the system. And so this is what we're critiquing. This is what we're saying. Even those of you that say, well, that's the route I'm going to go. You guys talking about revolution, that's a pipe dream. You can say that, whatever you want to say, that's beautiful. But you still need to build a movement. And there are people who are trying to do that. The Poor People's Campaign is one of those things. So people that, agree with voting as a system to create change, you should be a part of that, because that's the most important part of that whole element, not just you individually going and pulling a lever for one old cracker over another one. That's not how we're going to get free. So these things we're going to talk about right now are just, again, individual things that we all can do, no matter what community we come from, what nationality we are. We can do these things, and it can help build up towards this movement that I'm talking about, because we believe that that's the way we get what we need, by getting people engaged and just voting once every 2 years, 4 years, and you do nothing else, that's not being engaged. That's not being engaged. The people we're fighting against, you think they just do something two times in 4 years? You think that's how they keep control over us? No, they're, as we speak, 24/7, 365, engaging in brainstorming, processes, recruitment, organization to keep us oppressed. And for some reason, some of us are convinced that all we have to do is sometimey do something, and then we're going to beat these people who are dedicated to keeping us oppressed. That just doesn't make sense. So that's what we're going to talk about today, just those brief things that we can do. So let's start by saying, I think it's important. We have to ask ourselves the question, and each and every one of us has to do that. Like, what type of people are we? What type of people are we? Are you someone who places the interests of humanity above yourself individually? And that doesn't mean that you can't do things for yourself, but are you someone that thinks about the world and not just yourself, not just your family, not just your neighborhood, not just your city, not even just this country, but do you think about the world? It has to be the world, because if you don't have that international consciousness, then you'll miss a lot of things that are designed intentionally for you to miss it. Like, for example, I wrote in one of the articles I wrote this week on the blog, I wrote about what's happening in Nigeria with this special anti-robbery squad that's been brutalizing the people throughout Nigeria. And I wrote that you have to, if every African in the US came up economically, our economic condition improved dramatically, the only possible way that could happen is by intensifying the repression and oppression of people in Africa, people in the Caribbean, people in Central South America, in Asia. That's the only way that can happen. So if you only have a consciousness about the US, you'll miss that. And you'll see Africans around you that you can see coming up, and you're like, oh, we're making progress, and you miss that we're coming up on the backs of the rest of our people. So that's why it's important for us to think about, what kind of person do we want to be? What do we want to be concerned about? What are our values? What kind of values do you have? And by values, we mean, what do you believe in? Like, for example, what type of world do you want to live in? What's important to you? Are you the kind of person, like I had an African tell me the other day, that he didn't care about anybody except himself and his family. And he said in his house, this is how foolish this is, you all. He said, I asked him, so if your house, there's a house to the right to you, house to the left of you, and there's your house. If someone drops a bomb on the house to the left of you and blows up, kills everybody inside, someone drops a bomb to the house on the right of you, blows up, kills everybody inside, what does that mean to you? And he's like, as long as it doesn't hit me or my family, I'm good with that. And I said, well, that's, I didn't say anything to him, but I thought that shows how asinine that is, because clearly if that's going to make your whole neighborhood go up, and so that's going to threaten your safety, right? That's why, even from a selfish standpoint, that wouldn't make any sense. So, what type of world do you want to live in? And the reason why that question is important, because the way you answer it will determine what you're willing to do to have the world you want. In other words, if all that you say, like I saw a meme, it said, it's a backward patriarchal meme, but it said, most men want to come home to a clean house. And I'm like, well, if you want it clean, then get off your, and clean it. But most men want to come home to a clean house, a well-cooked meal. If you want a good meal, cook it. It said, to have, to be have affection. And is that true? And I wrote, no, some of us want a lot more than that. We want freedom and liberation. So, if that's you, like if that's someone you or someone like all you really want is just those types of things, then that's going to define what you do. And then when someone comes to you and tells you, well, you should get involved in a struggle for justice, you're not going to see the necessity to do that, because all you want is a clean house and nice food and sexual relations with someone. You're not really concerned about anything beyond that. So that's why that's an important question. And I think people have to think about that. And, oftentimes because of, I work for a social justice type organization. And so we ask those questions all the time in meetings. And what is interesting to me is a lot of times people struggle to answer them. And I always say, how do you work for a social justice organization and you're not thinking about these things on a regular basis? Like, I don't get that, right? Like these questions to me, I think about them all day, every day. So it's easy for me to answer them. And it's not because I'm smarter or any better than anyone. It's because I've spent time thinking about these things because this is what I want my life to represent. So if these are the kind of things you want your life to represent, justice, a society that's fair and equitable, then you got to be thinking about it. Like what does the world you want look like? What does it look like? I think about this all the time. So I want a socialist world, and I'm happy to explain to you what that looks like. And I don't have to just talk theoretically because I want that so bad. I've spent the better part of almost 40 years studying it. So I can give you a pretty clear analysis, detail-wise, as to what that would look like for me and what that needs to be. So I think, we all have to do that. We have to be thinking about what do we want? And then, how do you create, once you decide that, like what kind of world you want, what kind of things need to happen to create that reality for you to achieve what you want to achieve? So for example, you say, I want to go back to school and get a degree, right? That's great. No matter how old you are, that's a great thing to decide you want to do just for yourself, just for your own, expansion as a human being, right? So the first part is, what do you want to be? What type of person do you want to be? Well, I want to be someone who has knowledge and information. The second part, what type of world do you want? Well, I want to be able to use that education and advance it to help people understand, how to make the world better. And then how do you create that reality? Well, then what are you going to need to do to get back in school? Like what material things? How is it going to be financed? What is your schedule going to be? How are you going to go to school and work at the same time? How are you going to raise your children and do all those things? So, what is your planning process is the question here as to how you get where you want to be. What is your process? And we're not here to tell you what the process should be. We're just telling you should strongly consider having one, where you sit down and say, like, this is how I'm going to get to where I want to be 5 years from now. This is my process. I understand it. I'm committed to it. Nobody's going to derail me from it. You have to have that, because if you don't have that, then the only alternative is that just functioning from day to day, and then whatever capitalism throws at you, and that's what it is, for you that day, the flavor of the week, whatever that is, and that's what it is. What are you trying to achieve with your life? Whether you have a year left, whether you have 100 years left, what do you want to see happen? And what are you putting in place to make that happen? I think those are critical questions. And then, have you done the work that you need to do to believe in yourself? Have you done that work, right? Like, if 90% of what you're saying in your head is negative about you because that's what the people who raised you kicked into you all the time, it's going to be very difficult for you to get things done because you're always going to be getting in your own way. And I've seen this so much doing this work, like people who have good intentions, good hearts, good intentions. The minute we get on the cusp of a major victory, they melt down because it's so much more difficult for people to face the responsibility of succeeding than it is the disappointment of failure, especially if they're accustomed to failure. So what we want to do is expand beyond that and say we want to get people used to the success of victory, used to that, and to expect that, especially as it relates to what we're talking about, the ongoing struggle for justice for humanity. We want people to get in a place where you expect to win battles in that regard. And you will only get there if you believe in your abilities to work with people. If you believe in yourself, and the only way you're going to believe in yourself is those first three things have to happen. You have to have developed in your own mind what type of person you want to be and how you're going to get there. And you have to be doing those things. And that's how you develop that faith in yourself. So that's very important. If you don't have a process for that, it's going to be very difficult. So, just think about how you can create that process. That's very important. And then, obviously, we're not just talking about individualism. So you can't really have faith in yourself unless you have it in humanity. So what is your faith in humanity? Like, do you believe in people? A lot of people, this is common. Like, I hear this all the time. I don't trust people. And there are a lot of capitalist philosophies that reinforce that that we use all the time, that we're not really even aware of. I'll give you an example. If you want something done, what? You got to do it yourself. That is the most elitist, anti-human philosophical tenet you can imagine. Because basically, when you say that, and we've all said it, because that's a part of the conditioning in the capitalist system. It's a very individualistic system. It's a very elitist system. It's a very you're not good enough type system. So we've all said that. Everybody hearing this has used that. Or if you haven't, you've been around people that have. So what are you saying when you say that? If you want something done, you got to do it yourself. What you're saying is people don't have the abilities that you have. And that's elitist, and then you're also saying that you don't have any faith that people can develop those skills. So if that's really what you believe, and if on a subconscious level, we all do, because that's how we're socialized in this society, it's very difficult. That's why it's so difficult for us to build relationships with each other and effectively defeat this beast, because, there's constant distrust, and we don't believe people gonna follow through, and we think they have ulterior motives, and sometimes those things are true, but a lot of times they're not. Like, it's just what's in our head based on our dysfunctional place in society. So again, it's imperative that we all do our work to deal with those issues, to come face to face with them. And if you need help, professional help dealing with that, then get it. If you don't know how to get it, then talk to some people who can help you figure out how to get it. But if you're just like, you just have never thought of this stuff, then this is a great time to start right now, today, right here, start doing it. Because if we want to move forward, this is the kind of stuff that we're going to have to be talking about. I have complete faith in humanity, complete faith. I have faith in people. Have I been burned by that? More times than you ever will know. More than, and I've made a lot of mistakes with people that I've decided to share space and time with because of my faith. But I've decided that from a healthy standpoint, it's more important to me to be who I am, having faith in myself and in humanity, than it is to let, instances of people who took advantage of me, took advantage of my selflessness, took advantage of my generosity, whatever the case was, took advantage of my time, my energy, then to let them reshape the person that I am. I'm not going to let that happen. Now, I've certainly learned from experiences, how to not put myself in positions I put myself in before, but I definitely want to value and maintain the quality of believing in people. I don't ever want to be someone who's cynical about people. I believe when people say they want to do something to address the suppression, I believe them. And I will commit my time to working with them. And more often than not, they end up doing what they said they want to do. There are times when they don't, and we just, pack up and keep moving forward. So how do you impact and shape the world you want? Like, what are you going to do to impact and shape the world that you want? So I think that means you have to have some way to use your skills, use your personality, something that gives you fulfillment, that you're doing something to combat this backward system, to create all these things you say you want to be in a human being. So for me, what I've discovered is I can't control what other people do, but one thing I can do is I can write. I can take complex ideas and I can break them down in a way that people can relate to them and understand them. And so I try to do that as much as I can. I do that through the blog articles I write. I do that through the novels I've written. And then right now, I just completed, after a couple of years working on it, a manifesto or manual, if you will, on community defense. It's called A Guide to Defense Against White Supremacist and Fascist Violence. And it's a step-by-step journal, if you will, or manual on how to organize your neighborhoods to resist this phenomenon. And it's based on the work that I've been engaged in, the studies that I've engaged in, all of those things. So, I'm in the process of getting that published right now, which, if you don't know what that looks like, that means sending the manuscript out to these publishers I've chosen. I usually, when I go through this, I pick 6 or 7 publishers that fit the realm. In this case, they're left-leaning publishers. And then I'm going to wait. I'll wait until the end of this year, and I'll get some responses back. And some of them will be rejections, no doubt. And some of them, hopefully, will be acceptance offers. And I can get it published that way. And even if all of them are rejections, I'll publish it on my own. By the spring, it will be a thing. You just watch and see. 128 pages, it'll be out and available, no matter what these people do, because I'm not dependent on them. I'm on a mission. So this is what I need to do to feel like I'm a productive human being. So you have to have, what is your plan? What is your process to make sure you're able to do that? And how do you continue that? I'll continue doing that type of thing, because I think this is a wonderful thing, because all of these publications that I'm writing and publishing, they'll be around long after I am. So people that don't know me, never seen me, don't necessarily hear me speak or organize with me or anything, they still might be able to benefit from the knowledge and experience that I've been humbled and honored to achieve. So that to me is really important, to continue to do that. And you have to figure out what's important to you and how you do it. And whatever it is you choose, it's something we need. I can tell you that. It's something we need to have. So those are the first steps that need to be taken. And on top of that, for those people that, are really serious about making a contribution and getting engaged in justice work, now we move from the individual to the collective, right? So the do's and don'ts in justice work. So, this whole thing of security culture has to be addressed. And for those of you in movement circles, you have an understanding of what I mean. I lived and organized in Portland, Oregon. That's the security culture capital of the world. I'm sure of this. And so I've experienced it. I'm not speaking as someone from the outside looking in, but what it looks like is, nobody really trusts anybody. And if you go to a group and you say, hey, I want to work with you, then, you gotta pass the test of people to get into the group and to work with them, and no cell phones in the meeting and all this stuff. And I get it. I understand the intent, but I think that we have to realize that nobody that does those things, like Portland, Oregon, everybody up there does that. All the organizing circles do that. And it's not like there's less police snitching in Portland. It's not like there's less abuse of members to other members in Portland. It's not like any of those things are any less because of that stuff. In fact, I would argue there are a lot more. I've never experienced so much internal abuse than I did those 7 years I was organizing up there. So clearly those methods don't work. And so it's important to ask the question, like, what is the intent here? The intent here is to create safe environments to do work to bring about justice. Well, then how do you do that? And again, we argue that if you want to challenge human behavior, you have to address the defects in human behavior. This is a profit over people capitalist system we live in. So of course there's going to be all these dysfunctions people have. So that has to be addressed. If we don't address that, just making somebody not bring their cell phone into a meeting is doing nothing. to improve the environment and create more safety. It's doing absolutely nothing. So our argument, because, you know, we're African people, most people in Oregon are not. So the years I was up there, I would argue this all the time. And it was difficult for a lot of people up there to understand what I was talking about because they don't understand African culture. And African culture is a collective culture. It's a collective culture. It's not an individualistic culture. You know, if you walking on a street in Dakar or Accra or Dar es Salaam or Lagos or wherever you are in Africa, Banjul, wherever it is, Conakry, and somebody snatches your bag, highly unlikely, but you know, things happen. Somebody snatches your bag. Everybody on the street that sees it is going to take off running after that person. This is an individualistic society we live in here. Somebody snatch your bag here, everybody's just going to look like, oh, that's their problem. Ain't got nothing to do with me. You know, this woman in Cuba, when I was in Cuba, she was passing out these pencils, and the one kid got overzealous and grabbed, you know, a whole handful of pencils and ran. The people were waiting for the bus. Everybody took off after that kid to get those pencils and bring them back to the woman. Well, that's a socialist society. So they have that kind of collective kind. I know we don't understand that because all we know is capitalism, but that's what socialism looks like, regardless of what they tell you on CNN or CIA or whichever one you're watching. That's what socialism looks like. So, you know, these values are what we have to address if we want safety. So that's why we're constantly talking about the political education work, the need to have that, because that's the process where you learn collectively how backward the system is and that there is indeed something better and it is obtainable. And then the criticism, self-criticism process is the process we use, if taken seriously, to help us evolve as human beings. And when we have that, then we don't need to be based on whether somebody has a cell phone on them, because we develop human values and potential and capacity. And this is in line with our collective culture, because our political parties are mass. We don't have vanguard parties. That's a European concept. Nothing against it. It's great for Europe, but that's a European concept, vanguard parties. That's not African culture. I understand African people have imitated that, but our position is that vanguard parties are not consistent with African culture. And that's why if you look at Pan-African political parties, they're all mass parties, which means everybody can join, not just a percentage of people like the vanguard party model. The African Party for the Independence of Guinea-Bissau is a mass party. The Democratic Party of Guinea is a mass party. The Pan-Africanist Congress of Azania is a mass party. All of these are mass parties, you all. All of them that gained independence in Africa were mass parties. The one in Kenya, Tanzania, they were all mass parties. Convention People's Party in Ghana, mass parties. All African People's Revolutionary Party, mass party. We don't require people to go through, well, I gotta make sure I think you're okay to work with me. Who the hell am I to do that? Who put me through that? You know, how am I gonna say who is gonna be? I might be the police. That's just not a good system. So instead, what we do is develop everybody ideologically, then we don't have to worry about that. So this is one thing, you know, if you're pursuing this course and you want to be involved in the movement for justice, we're asking you to think about that, right? Like there are better ways to do things than these elitist hierarchical structures that are really foreign to African people and colonized people, but we imitate them. And I was guilty of that when I first went to Portland. I didn't know anybody and I didn't feel like I could just, be contrary to everything. So I participated in some organizing structures that did that and took my phone apart many times. But then after I developed some standing, I began to question those things. So, this is what we need to do if we're going to move to a higher level. And then, always, it's critical to approach your work with integrity and honesty and commitment to the struggle. Now, I'm going to say that because all these years, going on 37 years, I've been representing the All African People's Revolutionary Party. People may not, they may have whatever issue they have, but nobody can say, yeah, that guy's dishonest. He didn't, he took this money and we don't know what happened to them. And nobody can say he used his position to hit on women. Nobody can say any nonsense like that. Nothing whatsoever. The only thing that people can say is, that guy's just crazy. He's crazy about that stuff and I don't understand it and I don't want to be around it. They can say that. They can talk about other things that are not related to the work, but they can't say anything about integrity and honesty. And so I think that's critically important, because if someone is not, if they don't have integrity, I don't feel like I need to deal with them. And I'll tell them, I'm not dealing with you. You don't even have any integrity. You did this. I'm not going to deal with you. So I don't even take you seriously if you don't have integrity. So integrity is critical. If you have integrity, people have to respect where you stand. If you're a person that calls out truth, even when it's unpopular to do that, people have to respect it. Even if they don't have the courage to call it out, they will respect you for having that courage. That's essential. We need so much more of that in movement work. We need so much more of that. It'll eliminate a lot of the nonsense we have. It's calling things out, calling people out. And then along that line, in terms of doing the work, don't let people deter you from all these things we're talking about. People will find all kind of reasons to discredit you. But beyond all of that, and some of the things they criticize about you may be true, because none of us are perfect, and I've made many mistakes and I've learned from them. But a lot of the times when people raise those critiques, what I've learned is that they're not doing that because they want to make you a better person. They're doing that to justify what they're not doing. So even if, you get a critique and it's a valid one and you're broken up about it and, you're depressed about it, give yourself whatever space you need to do that. Because the bottom line is that you're out there doing this work because you want to see the world become better. And chances are the people who are just criticizing you, that's really their major contribution to it. So you needn't feel like you have to bow out because of that. Just learn from it and move forward. You're out there trying to do the work. We will give you more leeway than someone who's just running their mouth. So that's okay. And if you're out there doing the work and you're living life and you're experiencing all the stresses that go with that, you're going to make errors. You're going to make errors on a collective level, individual level. You're going to make all kind of error. That's what, so that. If you're, as Secretary said, the only people that don't make errors are people that aren't doing anything. So don't let that deter you if you make errors. If you're preaching about, I'll give you an example. I talked to a young African woman recently, and she had unfortunately been in an abusive relationship. And so she was, known for talking about respecting women. And she just felt like she was such a contradiction because it had come out about this relationship and that she wasn't going to have any credibility anymore. And I told her, like, you're entitled to live life and have experiences that aren't always the best. We all do. That does not define you. And the people who are gonna judge you based on that, those aren't serious. I don't even have to know them, and I know they're not serious, because serious people would never judge anybody in that type of way. So, that's what I mean when I say don't let anybody deter you from what you're doing. And then, understand that obstacles are a part of the process. Obstacles are always a part of the process. They will always be a part of the process. There's no process of work that's going to be free of obstacles. And anybody, like, I talk to people and they say, well, I raised my children to avoid conflict. And I'm like, well, you're raising a loser for a child. People get mad, but it's true. Like, I didn't raise my child's on here. She can tell you, she was not raised to avoid conflict. She was raised to struggle through conflict, because that's how you get stronger and that's how you get things done, because conflict is going to be everywhere. It's a universal law. It's dialectics. Even the first act of human existence, the birth of the child, that's a struggle. Any of you who have gone through that who are women identifying folks, you know that's true, way better than I'll ever know. So that's a struggle. So that should tell us right there, if the first act of life is a struggle, that's the definition of life. There's no way around that. So I'm not trying to get around struggle. Of course, I'm not trying to look for unnecessary struggle, but I'm not trying to get around struggle. Like, I understand organizing people is going to be a struggle. So I'm trying to figure out good ways to do that, not to, well, how do I get around that? Well, then you're not trying to organize anybody. And then, connect with other people who are positive. Like, it is true. Like, you got to surround yourself with positive people. If the people around you are not encouraging you, look, y'all, like, my lifestyle is a lot different than a whole lot of people. I don't eat sugar. I don't eat fried foods anymore. I don't eat any meat other than seafood. I exercise every day. I read all the time. I engage in this work. I have planning is a very serious part of my life. I do all this writing. Like, most people they don't know any African men that live like that. So, most of the time what I get is, oh, you don't smoke weed? I don't know. You the first brother I met that didn't smoke weed. Well, then you need to meet some different kind of brothers. Not against smoking weed, but you should never be able to make an asinine statement about that. That anytime you say something like that, that's telling you your circles are too small. It's not about smoking weed. You smoke it, that's your business. Just, you won't be in my house doing it, but that's your business. So good for you. So the point is that we have to know how to be around people who are doing positive things and who can encourage us to be positive people. If you're around people who are pulling you down all the time, it's difficult for you. You're strong, but why not make it easier for you? Be around, and for some of us, that might mean totally reevaluating who's in our life. It's probably a good idea to do that every couple of years. Reevaluate who's in your life, and don't just do it on social media. Don't just, passive aggressively block people. Block them in real life and explain to them why you're blocking them. That'll make you feel so much better. It'll help you in your health development. So just think about that. And then, use social media to advance the work that you're doing, not to tear people down. Don't get on social media and say anything about anybody or any organization that you have not. Don't do that at all. But you should be addressing whatever critiques you have to the people who you have them with. Now, I'm going to tell you right now, because I do that. And when you do that, people are not going to like you. Period. Okay. So those of you that struggle with conflict, that's something that you just have to work on. Because, my grandmother used to tell me, boy, you don't want everybody to like you. You're not God's child if everybody likes you, because there's evil people in this world. And she was right. She told me that when I was 7 or 8 years old. And I never forgot it. It's true. So I don't need to have everybody. In fact, if I go a certain period of time without somebody acting crazy towards me, then I start to wonder if I'm doing something wrong, because some of these people, you need them not to like you. That's how you gauge that you're doing the right thing. So don't use these social media devices to tear down anybody. I don't mean just in political struggle, even your friends, don't do it. You got an issue with them. Imagine what kind of society we would have if everybody dealt honestly with each other about issues. It would raise the quality of our society so much higher. So just practice that. Practice doing that. And then always, have something that people can use to advance the struggle. Like, one of the things I do, this is what I'm talking about. One of the things that I do is when I go to meetings, whether it's party meetings, coalition meetings, whatever it is, trainings, I'm doing a lot of trainings on self-defense. Like, I'm talking to women all over the country, African women, European women, indigenous women who are facing threats in this environment we're in, this place. So I'm doing trainings on how they can protect themselves. And so, one of the things that I always think about is when I go to meetings, I always, whatever I'm like, we should have this, you're in meetings and people are like, we should do this, we should do that. And then when it comes to, if it even comes to, how are we going to get those things done? Those people who had all those suggestions, they're completely quiet. Okay, that to me is a crime. That's criminal. And when you do that, and when I'm in a meeting with you and you do that, I lose all respect for you, because all you see the work as someone else's responsibility, I guess. Like, you're not willing. So I don't ever do that. I try to, if I have anything I think needs to be done, or even if I don't have anything, I still always try to come with, hey, I'll take the responsibility of coming with this. And anybody that works with me can confirm that. I'm not making that up. I'll take the responsibility to come with that. I'll come with this. Always come with something other than just yourself and your bad breath. Come with something that can contribute to moving the process forward. That's critically important, because what that does is it'll create a strong humility within you, which will make you a stronger organizer. So come with something. Be thinking about, what can I contribute to this process? Not once, not twice, but every time. And it doesn't have to be a major thing every time, but just get yourself in the habit of thinking that way, And, I look at this picture that you see here, and this is from 1992 or 93. And it was one of the times when Kwame Ture, who's on the far right, was here. And as always, like, I traveled with him when he came through here. That's me, second from the left. I was 250 pounds there. It was all muscle. And I didn't have the social skills that I hopefully believe I have today. So, my job was to protect him. And, I'm not even, I didn't smile, because I didn't know how to do that. And that kind of, I was trying to be serious. But I look at that and I think about, like, I'm proud of the growth that I've been able to make by doing all these things I'm talking to you about, on a consistent basis. And that's why I'm sharing them, because they work. And they're things that I think we need in this work. And I think that I've been able to grow while maintaining, a lot of the skills that, I developed at that period in history, still maintaining that and even expanding that, but expanding my humanistic skills, which are the most important skills you need to have. So definitely do that with all of this work, and it'll move us exponentially forward. So I want to close by talking about next week, because it's a very important week, and we want to really, really, really encourage you to participate. And please let people know, November 15th will be the 22nd commemoration of the lost physical disappearance of Kwame Ture. And so we're going to dedicate next Sunday's seminar to Kwame's legacy. And it's not just going to be a biographical sketch of Kwame's life. Yeah, there'll be some of that. But really what we want to do is talk about what impact Kwame has today, 22 years after his physical disappearance, because he's had quite a bit of influence, not only in the lives of people like myself who were fortunate enough to spend a significant amount of time with him, but people who didn't get to meet him, and just have been influenced by his ideas. So that's really what we want to focus on, what his ideas were and what his legacy was. So please join us next week, 4:00, when we talk about the 22nd commemoration of the life of Kwame Ture, formerly Stokely Carmichael. And then also, we just want to close by telling you, if you're interested in joining the All African People's Revolutionary Party, then go to the site, which is listed there, aprp-intl.org, and let us know you're interested in joining. And the site below that is my own blog. Again, just wrote an article about SARS, the repressive militia police wing in Nigeria, and there are a lot of articles like that on there. And then hoodcommunist.org is a collection of African revolutionaries and organizations. You should always go there for sure. They just republished the article I mentioned earlier that I wrote a few years ago on Organizing 101 this week. And many other articles from wonderful revolutionaries are on there. So, please support these sources. They're ongoing sources of revolutionary African perspectives. Clearly, this is not going to be on MSNBC. So if you don't encourage this and support it, it's very difficult for us to get the word out. So please do that, and let people know, let people know that this is going on. And so with that, Shakur, anything you want to add before we close out? She had some difficulty staying on, so she may have dropped off as a result of that. But that's okay. I'm going to speak to her in a few minutes, because one of those training sessions for African women in 3 different states, you all, we're doing tonight, security training. Some of y'all celebrating, but our people are under attack. So yeah, you celebrate, we're going to organize, get our people prepared so that they can be prepared to defend themselves, and not have to feel like the only security plan they have is calling racist Gestapo police. We are not going to submit to that. We're going to prepare our people to do whatever we need to do to protect ourselves. So we appreciate all of you for being with us. We ask you to stay strong, stay committed. We really hope that you join us next week for the legacy of Kwame Ture. Have a great rest of your Sunday. Forward ever, backwards never. Stay strong, join an organization working for justice.